Welcome back. The Union government's law on the appointment of Chief Election Commissioner and election commissioners is once again under challenge. The Associate for Democratic Reforms, which successfully petitioned against the electoral bonds not so long ago, has moved the Supreme Court against the central law. And the Supreme Court has agreed to take up their plea. The hearing will take place on Friday. The ADR has a simple request from the top court: stop the centre from appointing election commissioners under the law which the Parliament recently passed. Instead, the appointment should be by a panel including the Chief Justice of India. The timing of this case is very significant. The hearing in Supreme Court will take place on the same day the Prime Minister will chair a meeting to select 2 election commissioners. Just to remind you, the 3-member Election Commission has 2 vacant spots ever since Arun Goyal resigned from his position as Election Commissioner last week. Now, as the CEC and ECs are to be, according to law, appointed, a panel comprising of the Prime Minister, a Union Minister picked by the Prime Minister, and the Leader of Opposition in Lok Sabha will together decide who should be appointed as Election Commissioners. Earlier, before a law was framed and passed by the centre, the panel comprised of the Prime Minister, the Chief Justice of India, and the Leader of the Opposition in Lok Sabha. The ADR's argument in Supreme Court is that the present law gives the ultimate power to the ruling government, which in turn raises questions over the fairness of the selections. Well, before I open this to our panel, let me go across to Major General Anil Verma, the National Coordinator and Head for ADR. Thank you very much, Major General Anil Verma, for joining us. Even as your petition is in the court, my first question to you is, what has made you place this petition before the court? It's a very important petition coming at a very crucial juncture. Could you explain to us the reasons behind you approaching the court on this?
See, basically last year, there was a case of Anup Baranwal versus Union of India, in which the Supreme Court had given certain directions that till such time a law is made, the composition of the selection party would include the Chief Justice. Subsequently, in December 2023, an act was passed in the Parliament. I think the opposition had walked out and all that, but it was passed. And it was made into an act, and it was effective in January 2024. So the basic thing was that there were arguments done during that time, and the judgment which was given in the Anup Baranwal case, the reasons which were given by the Supreme Court, and it was a constitution bench, they said that the Election Commission should be fearlessly and robustly independent. The executive has a critical stake in the election process in ensuring that there is free and fair elections. And this judgment relied on the 255th Law Commission report, which had also recommended that, the Chief Justice is in part of the selection process as far as the CBI director and the Lok Ayog.
Correct.
So it was based on that logic. Now, the basic thing was that, the selection process should be insulated from the political or the executive. And this was also stated in the Constituent Assembly. And for 70 years, we did not have a law. So it is a good thing that a law has been made and an act has been passed as far as the selection procedure, the appointments,
Correct.
and, all that thing has been done. But the main thrust of keeping the executive away was sort of, once the act was passed, things were changed. So, and if I were to just quote Justice Rastogi, who was one of the judges in this Anup Baranwal, he said, selection process of the center of a constitutional post cannot be equated with a bureaucratic functionary. If the executive is left with the exclusive discretion to select a candidate, it may destroy the fabric of the constitutional institution. So they had gone to such lengths, the Supreme Court judges, when this is. So basically, what we have said, there are 2 prayers. One is that you stay the implementation of the Section 7 of the Act. The Section 7 specifies the composition of the selection committee, which is the Prime Minister, the leader of the opposition, and one union member. The CJI has been replaced by a union cabinet minister. And the second prayer is that you may kindly direct the Union of India to appoint the vacant posts which are there, 2 of them, election commissioners, in accordance
I have
with
a
the
panel
selection.
waiting with me, sir. But before I go to them, one question, sir. While there are concerns about the impartiality of Election Commission of India repeatedly, which is being raised, also the appointments that may happen, that's one side. But there's also another side to this, separation of executive from the judiciary. Isn't there other ways to look at unbiased or unaffiliated election commissions than roping in a judiciary, which was a temporary clause or a temporary period stopgap arrangement, if I may use that?
You're right. We are not saying that the Chief Justice, we have just said that the executive should not have the exclusive power. It can be some other person of eminence, who can be there in the selection committee, so that there is a unbiased, because right now the majority is there. And there is also a section in the Act which says that if there is somebody missing, for example, if the leader of the opposition is not there, even then the selection committee will go ahead and decide. So that is the issue. And that is why, if we go back to history, Mr. Lavasa had
fair
resigned
enough. You've made
for
some very
certain
important
reasons.
point. Right.
And now,
Major
why
General
Mr.
Anil
Arun
Verma,
Goel-
thank you very much for joining us.
Okay.
Yes, you were saying a last point you were making? All right. That was Major General Anil Verma with us. I'm also being joined right now at this point by O.P. Rawat, former Election Commissioner of India, R.S. Pathania, who's a spokesperson for BJP, as well as Sulaiman Mohd Khan, the spokesperson for Congress. Thank you very much, all three of you, for joining me, and thank you for your patience even as we were interviewing your predecessor. But Mr. O.P. Rawat, to you first. How do you look at this petition which is before the court? There have been so many sides to this. One is the independence of executive from judiciary. Two is a lot of concerns that have come in over what seems to be not so impartial election commission, the allegations around it. How do you look at this?
Actually, Honorable Supreme Court will take a view on the petition because ADR has been always pushing for democratic reforms, especially concerning elections. And most of these decisions in the matters of selection of election commissioners also came around through their action. Otherwise, if you look at it from a different angle, not from the angle of a petition pending in the Supreme Court, then our constitutional scheme is that Parliament has to enact a law. Supreme Court wanted that you should enact a law, and till you enact this law for providing for selection of election commissioners, you will have selection through this committee where Prime Minister, CJI, and Leader of Opposition will be the members. So government will be doing everything as per Honorable Supreme Court's order. They made the law, and they are following that law to select 2 election commissioners for the existing vacancies. So looking at the whole thing from this perspective.
O.P. Rawat, before this law, just before I go to the others, before this law was passed in the Parliament, this was just in 2023 for that matter, towards the end of 2023. What was the precedence before that, if you can tell our viewers about that? And that's also important to understand the political context.
For last 70 years, all the election commissioners and chief election commissioners were appointed by the executive. They were shortlisting, they were recommending to the president, and president was agreeing and appointing. And Honorable Supreme Court also observed in 2017 that although the Parliament has not enacted a law to provide for selection of election commissioners and CECs as stipulated in Article 324, we note with pleasure that so far all those appointees, CECs and ECs, have delivered absolutely free, fair and credible elections time and again. So that is quite satisfying.
Okay. Okay, allow me, sir, to get the introductory remarks from others as well. Sorry for interrupting you. Let me just get in the introductory remarks. Sulaiman Mohd Khan, what are your concerns? What are the objections of the party? There have been a lot of concerns that have been reiterated time and again over the past several months, for that matter. How are you, what is right now? What is the principal concern?
Everyone know that this election commission has to be independent because the elections have to be free and fair. Now, this is the base or the edifice of the democracy on which our constitutional democracy is actually standing. Now, election to the parliament, to the state legislature, to vice president, president's post are being conducted by CEC and the other election commissioners. Now, the question is, when Supreme Court has suggested that the panel to be independent, and it was also discussed in the parliamentary constituent assembly debates way back when the constitution was framed, and Dr. Ambedkar was of the view that for a healthy democracy or for the elections to be free and fair, it has to be kept out of the ambit of the executive pressure. The selection of the election commissioners and the chief election commissioner has to be completely independent. Now, post that, in 2015, the Law Commission has given its report, which says that the panel, for the selection panel, for the selection of chief election commissioner and election commissioner has to be the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition, the Lok Sabha, and the Chief Justice. This is the Law Commission report in 2015. Post that, very recently in 2023, in Anup Baranwal's case, the same has been reiterated by the Supreme Court's constitutional bench. Now, what the government has to do?
सीमा पर देश की रक्षा करते जवानों की दिवाली सोनी ना हो, इस बात को ध्यान में रखते हुए पीएम मोदी ने इस साल भी देश के जवानों के साथ मनाई दिवाली।
पापा, मोदी जी के
gentlemen before us said that how Ashok Lavasa resigned, how Arun Goyal has resigned, both were in future had to be the chief election commissioners. They resigned, and Ashok Lavasa ji gave a report in 2000.
Allow me to just go into RS Pathania. I also have to ask Congress, what did they do really? They had many opportunities to do what was meant to have done according to them. But I'll get to that, and we are apologies to our viewers for the interruption that really happened in between. That seems to have been some technical glitch. But RS Pathania, what do you have to say?
Please, Sneha, thanks for allowing me to put forth my viewpoint on the matter and issue. Constitution is a living document. This is what Bhimarao Ambedkar ji said on the floor of the Constituent Assembly. It's not. Its articles, its words, its letters, its colons and semicolons, they are nothing like letters written in letters of gold or letters of written on the stone. So the Constitution needs to change with the exigencies of the time and place. The honorable government and ultimately the parliament. Let me remind my learned people that you were the same bogey, you were the same coterie who pinpointed fingers on the appointment of Mr. Goyal. The way he was prematurely retired, he was appointed within a period of 24 years. You filed a petition against his appointment also in the Honorable Supreme Court. You couldn't get anything. Now, once he resigned, you tried to raise another storm over it. So, my point remains that in all its wisdom, the parliament has enacted a law. Jawaharlal Nehru, let me remind my Congress people, said on the floor of the House.
RS Pathania, one question. Why can't this panel be equal? Why have center as 2, opposition as 1? And why ensure that consensus is not necessary to be able to appoint? You get my point. Even if there's an opposition leader who's not agreeing to it, it will still be appointed. So if there is an effort, and at least BJP brought in a law, fair enough. But if there is a law which is being brought in, why not make it something that is very difficult to be questioned? In the sense, at least let it be equitable. Let it have.
They have very simple. Any institution, and particularly the Election Commission of India and his 2 election commissioners, they are none like a Frankenstein monster. They are to be governed by the legal procedures, practices, and precedent, and particularly by the Representation of People's Act, while deciding petitions, being governed by the Delimitation Act and various laws in force. If
No, I don't get
they
that. I don't
violate
understand this.
that
What's the
Lakshmana,
problem in
they
ensuring that you
violate
have a
that
better
Lakshmana
panel?
Rekha. If they violate the Lakshman Rekha, there are checks and balances for it. Simply by a replacement of Chief Justice of India by a cabinet minister doesn't give a locus standi to the opposition and to all fence hitters to raise a storm over it, to blow hollow trumpets over
O.P.
it.
Rawat?
Please have belief.
O.P.
We want to
Right.
have
O.P.
party-
Rawat, my question to you, is there a better way of doing this? Can impartiality of the Election Commission, which is extremely important in any democracy, be ensured in a way which would be separate from mingling judiciary with the executive, however, be able to give enough teeth to the panel to be able to change, make amends or demand for amends and not give a particular party or the ruling party the all power, which is how it's been going on for decades largely.
I would like to say that hitherto what procedure was available, that has been improved one step ahead. Now, inclusion of leader of opposition gives a lot of transparency. Earlier, it was totally executive. The government used to recommend and president used to appoint. Now, from that level, we have gone up to including leader of opposition. And of course, it would have been ideal if CJI were there, but whatever is within the wisdom of parliament and government.
So you think it is ideal for having the CJI? That's what you believe. It will be the best to have CJI on board. Is that how you look at it?
No, whatever the Honorable Supreme Court had suggested would have been ideal of a mature democracy. But we may not be mature enough as of now. So whatever our parliament has decided, we have given them to make laws and we must respect that.
Sulaiman Mohd Khan?
Yes.
How many decades is it going to take for India to be a mature democracy?
May I come in, Sneha?
Yes, it's to you, Mr. Sulaiman. I'm running short of time. It's to you.
Just one point. I just want to, there is a very specific and simple question. On one side, there's a prime minister from the government. Other side, there's a leader of opposition. And, the balancing act will be done by the CJI. What is the problem? Why the prime minister is scared by a neutral person? Both the sides will have their say. The CJI's consent will be very important. That is the issue. And Sneha, I have seen with my own naked eyes on 5th of December 2022, by-election to Rampur Assembly constituency. I am a voter there in UP. I have seen police not allowing people to vote, beat them black and blue, and by doing manipulation and capturing the booths. 1 year ago, BJP has won that seat. It has never in the history of independent India.
I am totally out of time, but because you have made this, I have to go to Aris Patania. Aris Patania, Sulaiman Mohd Khan adding to what perhaps O.P. Rawat has said, not in this intention at all, but we are not a mature democracy yet, and the panel only goes to show that. 30 seconds to you, I have to wrap.
Sulaiman, yes, Neha, there's another aspect of the matter that Chief Justice of India and judges, they are a bit aloof from judging the acumen, ability and capability of the civil servants. I think a cabinet minister is in a better position to have a better know-how about the credentials, about the credibility, about the fairness and about the effectiveness of a retired bureaucrat. I think to give more precision and more teeth to the system, this is a better system. And
I think that's a very high-handed stroke, Mr. Aris Patania. We're totally out of time, but I do hope in days to come we would move towards a system, move towards a country where we will have some very decisive, clear ways of ensuring free and fair elections. Thank you very much, all three of you, for joining us. Well, that's all we have for you on the Urban Debate. Thank you for joining us.